It was back to normal at Newcastle's #1 sports ground today. The Seagulls moved into residence. Council workers were back on the job. The clash between New South Wales and the touring Englishman was rated as a great success, local fans supporting the match.
Over 11,000 people at the game, and we should be sharing a profit of something like $30,000 with the New South Wales Cricket Association, so a very good result all round.
And things look good for the future. The New South Wales Cricket Association has supported Newcastle's bid for a test or one-day international for the region's bicentenary in 1997. One problem though, according to the Newcastle Cricket Association, facilities under the grandstand aren't up to scratch for such a big game. The association will approach council for improvements.
The function room is a little bit small. And we were a little bit embarrassed on Sunday when we had, as well as the teams and the officials, a number of VIPs there, and it was impossible to accommodate them all for lunch at the one time.
Dozens of dairy farmers attended the discussion at Jones Island, north of Taree. The Manning Dairy Advancement Group paid for the American nutrition expert to talk to local farmers. For the first time, many looked at alternative feeding methods, byproducts and fibre supplements.
That's the case of just trying to decide strategies on using the feed resources as efficiently as possible. And maybe that means culling a few cows or cutting back, feeding a little differently.
In the past, Manning farmers have relied on the rich regional pastures to feed their cows, but the drought has changed all that. Now they have to buy in feed. The problem is obtaining large amounts of grain as economically as possible. Professor Van Horn says comparisons of the Australian dairy industry can be made with that in Florida.
We're using the equally good genetic base, and the technology that they use is probably similar as well. So the cost of feeds is really a big part. We feed more concentrates and you feed more pastures.
The feeding expert has been conducting lectures for Queensland dairy farmers over the past few weeks. Tracy Walsh, NBN News. The Great Lakes Council received $565,000 in funding for its bushfire brigades this year. The General Manager says that is just half what Council asked for.
Well, we're certainly happy that it's a lot better than last year, but in terms of some of the capital equipment which we would have liked to buy, we obviously haven't got the funding.
Bushfire Brigade members say a lack of helmets and boots makes their job more difficult. The Tuncurry and Pacific Palms brigades are relying on 30-year-old former army trucks to serve as tankers. Last Friday night, a brigade Land Cruiser lost its back wheels while on a mountain near Foster during a patrol.
He was just driving up the mountain on the road and the whole lot came unstuck. It's a very old vehicle and just fatigue, just simply purely fatigue.
John Fitzpatrick is confident the needs of the brigade volunteers will be met in the future.
If we continue to get funding at the current level or better, even though we haven't been able to get everything that we want, we are going forward, not backward.
But Bruce Wildey says the situation is desperate.
We need decent fire trucks with proper protection, and we need them now, not later, but now, and standardised equipment in those trucks.
Tracy Walsh, NBN News.
A 21-year Speedway veteran, Schwartz was undergoing final preparations at Gosford early this afternoon, looking forward to some competitive racing on the tight circuit.
The racing will be really fast and furious, you know, and all these guys that are on the tour, we've got riders from Norway, we've got riders from Czechoslovakia, Russia, Poland, Australia, New Zealand, and we're here to really give the Aussies a good rev up, you know.
Tomorrow night will be round 8 of the 10-race series, with the exceptional international field assembled by 9-time world champion Ivan Major. 8 international riders are joined by 4 locals, which include Gosford's Stephen Davies and Mick Poole.
Yeah, this is their home territory, so they're expecting a lot of, you know, extra hard competition from probably Mick Poole in particular, but Chris Watson won here a couple of weeks back.
Meantime, the Super V8 sedans will be the highlight of the 19th annual Coca-Cola Classic to be held at the Newcastle Motordrome tomorrow night. Current New South Wales champion John Pine will start favourite, with Lismore's Queensland champion John Leslight, who is making his first appearance of the season, among the 22 confirmed starters vying for the $5,000 in prize money.
It's a green oasis in a region dried by drought. A lush 1,900-metre state-of-the-art track, including 3 training services of grass, cinders and sand. After 4 years and $7 million, it was time to crown the new home of the Sport of Kings. Then history was made. Zenaletti raced into the history books with Larry Cassidy aboard.
Randwick's probably always been my favourite track, but I think this, you know, sort of does them all.
Sentiment shared by the who's who of racing.
It's a lovely showcase for the horses that are bred in this area.
The architecture is quite spectacular. The track itself is magnificent.
The new course is expected to attract up to 20% more nominations, but leading trainer Anthony Friedman says having one of the best race courses in the country doesn't guarantee the best horses.
Well, it's all to do with prize money, I guess. If the prize money warranted us coming, you know, we'd come, but if it's just going to be country prize money, it makes it difficult to justify.
The track won't reap the only winners for Scone, with an equine research centre and a TAFE College of Rural Studies to be built. The racing complex is expected to attract trainers, jockeys and students from all over the country, with some people suggesting Scone's population could increase by more than 1,000 people.
The people that are looking to buy racing and training complexes here, I would think within 4 years we'll see 300 to 400 horses training at Scone.
Richard O'Leary, NBN News.
The strike will affect thousands of TAFE students sitting for their yearly exams. In Newcastle, teachers have rescheduled timetables to reduce the level of disruption, but claim they'll have to work overtime and were told not to expect any penalties.
It's pretty rough for the employer to dock us for our pay strike on Wednesday, and TAFE teachers will support the strike. But at the same time expect them to do at least some of the work the week after for nothing.
Teachers at the Ties Hill campus today met to discuss the matter. A meeting with management late this afternoon resolved the overtime issue. They say the latest dispute is a harder struggle for them. Unlike their public school counterparts, they've yet to receive a 2% pay increase awarded back in January and claim they've been left out of the negotiating process.
In TAFE, they've just got to fight harder because there's more to fight for and the employer wants more from them.
Despite assurances from the Minister for Education to review the timing of its original 8% offer, the Teachers Federation has refused to back down from its 10% claim. Wednesday's strike will disrupt the state's 2,300 public schools and TAFE colleges. Melinda Smith, NBN News. Just a sample of the music from the show that everyone has been talking about for the past 4 years. Marie Johnson and Peter Cousins are stars of The Phantom, a fairy tale come true for an understudy taking on the principal role of Christine.
The audiences love it. I mean, even the people who sort of haven't been to see a musical before, are sort of wives are dragging their husbands along and saying, and husbands are saying, oh, I'm not really interested in a musical, I'm not sure if I'd like it. And they're the ones who sort of come out raving.
Born and bred in Tamworth, 39-year-old Peter Cousins has come a long way from performing in high school concerts, describing the role of Raoul as a special highlight in his musical career.
It's a phenomenon, isn't it, Phantom, and a oncer, I think, you know, and I don't think producers, I think, and other people doing shows are hopefully trying to repeat this phenomenon, but they won't.
But the show's biggest star is Rob Guest. Playing the lead in more than 1,000 performances, he's calling on audiences not to miss out on the Phantom experience.
Phantom does have a limited season. It's probably a lot longer than most. We don't know when it's going to close, but someday, somewhere, Phantom is going to have to move or close or whatever.
Singleton has a population of 12,000 people in the town and 20,000 across the region. But if locals want to swim, they have to be content with a 25-metre pool.
We have quite a few schools that have to use Brankston Pool, that are bused to Maitland and going to Denman next year because our pool just can't provide the facilities that they need.
The town used to have a 50-metre pool back in 1983, but it was filled in to make a car park beside a local shopping centre. It was never replaced.
Given that we consider, or the community considers, we're such a rich area, then the perception is that, yeah, we should have a 50-metre pool. It is generally considered that it's a very basic right.
Last night, Singleton Council voted to give the okay for a new 50-metre pool on this site, but it may take years as the total project will cost more than $800,000. Local fundraising groups have already collected $230,000. They've been asked to raise another $120,000. Council will meet the shortfall. Peter Ryan, NBN News. The This is Singleton's version of the Chev, that is, Singleton High's electric vehicle, top speed 60 kilometres per hour. The car, powered by solar energy and backup batteries, has been entered in the NRMA Energy Challenge, a test of technology through the streets of Canberra and Sydney.
It's designed to demonstrate different alternative, more efficient and less environmentally damaging forms of transportation.
The students have been working on the Chev for 6 months. The vehicle is valued at around $5,000, most of the funding coming from local sponsors. Singleton is the only school entry of 50 competitors in the challenge. A complex formula that even considers the energy involved in building the car will decide the winner. Peter Ryan, NBN News.
This is where quietly spoken Avis Watton feels comfortable. Originally from the Upper Hunter town of Muswellbrook, the 32-year-old has been playing polo cross for 16 years and has never grown tired of it.
Like a drug, just, I don't know, enjoyment, get a lot of enjoyment out of it. It's a family sport too.
In the past 2 years, Avis's skill has won her selection in the Australian side. Last year, she represented her country in South Africa and Zimbabwe. Now she's training for a tour of New Zealand in February. The depth of polo cross talent in northern New South Wales is obvious, with more than half the 7-member squad coming from the region. Captain Leslie Jeffries hails from Tamworth, Vicky Copeland from Dunedoo and Jenny Donnelly from Maxville. The team will play 3 tests against New Zealand. While Australia is ranked number 1 in the world, Avis says New Zealand is an emerging side and not to be taken lightly. Catherine Lamond, NBN News.
Members of the Transport Workers Union met this morning at the ACF and Linfox depots at Cardiff and voted to go on strike for at least 24 hours. They'll gather again in the morning to vote on possibly extending that stoppage. Woolworths says it will have to dump $300,000 worth of perishable goods, commenting that this is the first time such produce has not been exempt during strike action. Although grocery shelves looked healthy this afternoon, it's expected that stocks will run down quickly over the weekend. The transport workers are conducting a national campaign for a 15% pay rise. The TWU warned earlier this week that this region would be hit hard by strike action if that claim is not met.
The problem started soon after 6 this morning. It was caused by a power failure at the Hamilton Exchange. Backup batteries designed to hold the load failed and the system crashed. Thousands of phone users across the 049 area were affected. Extra staff was called in to try and sort things out. While it was an inconvenience for some, it was a serious issue for emergency services. The communications centre at the Newcastle Fire Brigade immediately brought in a backup plan.
We contacted all the stations within the Newcastle Fire District and Lake Macquarie via pager, and then one member of those brigades attended the station.
000 numbers were being redirected through Gosford and then passed on to Newcastle through internal fire brigade lines. The ambulance service had only one 000 line working at the Hamilton base compared to the normal 5. Some 000 numbers were being directed through the police. The lines were out for about 3 hours. While the emergency services reported problems, luckily no critical cases were affected by the fault. Peter Ryan, NBN News.
It's the pace of developments and what they see as a lack of environmental safeguards that has residents and conservationists along our coastline concerned.
We have a great concern for the needs of the environment and the care that we need to see the environment taken of.
Environmental groups in the Port Stephens area cited examples of wetlands about to be filled in for residential developments and rapid changes in some coastal areas from bushland to suburb. While most admit growth can't be stopped, it's haphazard development without consideration of the coastline as a whole that concerns them. It's hoped that a national coastal development policy would counteract this.
What does worry me is when they go ahead and employ those people who make recommendations to the council, that the councillors may often feel confident enough to overturn the recommendation.
What we need to do into the future is to see local government, state government and Commonwealth government working cooperatively so we can have a national approach.
There was another Port Stephens resident with a vested interest. Orphaned after its mother was hit by a car, this little fellow did his best to make sure the Port Stephens Koala Management Plan got the Minister's stamp of approval. Acclaimed by planners, it's hoped the scheme to preserve one of this state's largest koala populations will become the blueprint for other councils.
We believe that the plan, if adopted, will become the blueprint for koala maintenance of koala habitat throughout Australia. It's an extremely important plan.
Joanne Shoebridge, NBN News.
The Premier arrived for an inspection which could cost the people of New South Wales nearly $3 million. The Knights Board wants the government to pay the debt incurred by improvements to the stadium when Newcastle entered the Winfield Cup. John Fay's visit is a result of fierce lobbying by the board following its submission to the government last month. It was also a chance for the former Canterbury grade player to talk to two of the Knights' best talents, even if it meant trading in his old club colours for the blue and red of Newcastle. The board wants the Premier not to just join the team, but to save it as well. The stadium is being sold as a facility that serves the whole region, not just the rugby league community.
And also broadening the use of the ground, such as baseball, other sporting events and other initiatives that relate to other disciplines.
I support having this team here and I support the team progressing well, and there's a good plan that's been put forward by a professional board. Now that's a pretty good start, it's persuasive.
The Premier says he'll take the board's submission to Treasury and is quietly confident he'll be able to give the hunter an early Christmas present in a few weeks. Richard O'Leary, NBN News.
Searchers gathered at the Charlestown Police Station early this morning. Police, SES and Fire Brigade personnel were joined by more than 230 volunteers.
I'm sure that the family would be more than pleased with the result here this morning, and I'm sure there are a lot of people out there just thinking that could be their own 17-year-old daughter in this situation.
Volunteers arrived with all forms of transport.
Anything you see, just go down the short way and have a look all the way along.
Yeah, right out.
We're looking at all avenues where we think that perhaps we may find some indication and anything to assist us with our inquiry at this stage, no matter how small, is going to be certainly beneficial.
Joanne Shoebridge, NBN News.
After 3 days of tough competition, the Asanda Rally came down to a question of survival. Neil Bates was nursing a sick Salika, with a broken second gear forcing him to take it easy and settle for a safe second place. Ross Dunkerton had hold of the lead, and without the Salika to pressure him, he took a relaxed approach to the final 6 stages. The other main contender for the title was Newcastle's Michael Guest, but his bad luck continued today, with the Mitsubishi Lancer dropping a valve just 3 stages from home, putting him out of the rally. In the end, Dunkerton crossed the line 4 minutes and 15 seconds ahead of Bates. It was Dunkerton's 4th win in the Asanda Rally, and Bates's second place was enough to net him his 2nd consecutive Australian Championship with co-driver Coral Taylor.
The department is mapping the whole state in stages, looking at soil types, land forms, vegetation and suitability for building foundations to help with the orderly planning of all types of development. Today, it released its detailed report for the 2,700 square kilometres of rapidly growing area along the coast from Terrigal to Redhead and inland to Wollombi.
There's information in there that looks at the physical characteristics of the soils for engineering type purposes, but there's also information in there for the normal agricultural user who needs to know the fertility of the soils and some of the chemical properties of those soils.
It's no easy job. First, high-resolution aerial photographs were studied, which led to 457 individual sites being chosen for detailed study. Individual soil and rock samples were taken and examined for various things like clay and acid content and ability to resist erosion. The report is timely, with the opening of the F3 freeway and congestion in Sydney leading to a rush of development northwards along the coast. The information is available to anyone simply by contacting the Department of Land and Conservation at Maitland. Reports for the Port Stephens and Newcastle areas are being compiled and they'll be released within the next 12 months. It's said that without the interference of man, the entrance channel to Lake Macquarie would flush sufficiently to remain free of sand indefinitely. But things like the Blacksmith's Breakwall and the Swansea Bridges and special dredging for barges to deliver generators to Araring in the early 80s upset the natural flow.
It was happening very quickly, could quite easily silt up to the extent where water flow into the lake is significantly retarded, which must have an effect upon the water quality of the lake, on the fishing capabilities of the lake, and in turn the tourist capabilities of the lake. It's quite a significant problem to Lake Macquarie.
But the problem for Russell Cummings and his sailing mates is far more immediate, with the swelling underwater sand dune known as the Dropover seriously disrupting the ocean racing schedule of the larger boats and likely to prevent some from taking part in the Sydney to Hobart Classic.
A number of our boats are actually landlocked or lake-locked and simply can't get out to the ocean.
Lake Macquarie Council is aware of the problem but says dredging such as carried out from time to time is both uneconomic and only a short-term measure. The council is taking a long-term approach to the matter.
We have engaged a study to be undertaken which has involved very extensive computer modelling of the lake entrance and the lake itself. That's being undertaken by a private consultant based in Sydney. We're hopeful of getting that result early next year, and we hope that there'll be a long-term solution proposed.
An interim report will go before the council tonight at the instigation of local councillor and yachty Ken Winning. But no matter what that report contains, it won't help the vital tourist trade this time around.
We traditionally get a lot of yachts visiting in the summer period from Sydney and other places who simply can't get into the lake this year.
After 33 years, one would think Peter Porter would be looking forward to a break from golf, but true to his professionalism, what do you think was foremost in Peter's mind on his last Monday in the job?
Playing golf. Watching the young trainees this week of our
Futures tournament and seeing how the international players go.
As many of Australia's best aspiring professionals gather to launch their careers this week, Porter will be retiring from the life as a club professional to begin another as a player.
So I'm looking forward to getting out and playing a bit of seniors golf. Might even tackle a few pro-ams.
Porter began his golfing career under the guidance of Kel Nagle at Sydney's Pymble Golf Course in the 50s, and since coming to Newcastle has seen many changes, made numerous friends and takes with him a host of memories.
Peter's been a wonderful servant for Newcastle Golf Club members, and he's one of the school of the old days where they started off in collars and ties, and here we are today. He's turned 60 and he's decided that time's up.
Being appointed to Newcastle Golf Club is the highlight of my career. I think this is a marvellous golf course, marvellous people here and the area in general.
It was to have been a special occasion for the people of the Merriwa district, a royal visit.
Oh, it's an honour, isn't it? I suppose. Very pleased, yeah.
Host was Ian Steele Park, who is a mild sufferer of motor neurone disease. The Duchess of York's stopover was to highlight the need for more awareness of the illness. She was to launch a book and meet special carers. But there was disappointing news.
It appears that due to the weather conditions in Sydney, Her Royal Highness the Duchess of York will be unable to come along here today to make her visit.
Low cloud made it impossible for her to travel by helicopter. The announcement came as a shock. This visit had been 2 months in the planning.
I'm very disappointed that she couldn't come. I'd like to talk to her.
But the show went on. Author Tess O'Brien still launched her book, Down Came the Jumbuck, a book of shearing tales. It was dedicated to Pam Power, the former mayor of Merriwa, who tragically died of motor neurone disease 6 months ago. The disease attacks the use of the arms, legs and speech. Most people die within 5 years of contracting it. While Fergie didn't show, Pam Power's family is hoping it has made some people aware of a frightening disease. Peter Ryan, NBN News. For most of us, this would be a trip through hell, but this is what the Army calls good training.
The object of the exercise, of course, is to raise standards, fundamentally. The more you compete, the more you raise standards.
The Duke of Gloucester Cup began in 1946 at the Singleton base. It's an annual challenge between Army battalions to test their military skills over 7 days. The final test was to negotiate 30 obstacles in a 500-metre course. 6 teams came from Army bases in Townsville, Brisbane and Sydney. Each team or section had 9 men, their job to get through the course as quickly as possible, as if in a wartime situation. There was no time to rest. 2/3 through the course, the teams had to pick up a 52-kilogram weight to simulate carrying a wounded soldier. The pressure was showing, the men calling on each other to keep pushing ahead.
Get up and go! Get up there, wall!
After 20 minutes of agony, it was over.
We're pretty tired, pretty exhausted. It's a fair bit of hard work. The blokes pulled well together as a team.
After a week of competition, the winning team was 1st Battalion, Royal Australian Regiment from Laverick Barracks in Townsville. Peter Ryan, NBN News.